Tree shake is a term used in JavaScript in relationship to removing dead code. And you could see here in the Webpack, which we're using for Create React App, they give you all the tips and all utilities you can add. And Create React App is already built with some utilities to remove it, but it doesn't take care of everything. There's two things that when I talk about tree shaking that we can do to eliminate dead code. It's a code that never got executed, and those are results that are never being used. So code that doesn't get executed and results that never been used. So if we take a look, for example, in our project, look at our project, and if you remember in the previous section, we retrieved some data from Recoil, but that data is not used. So if I were to build another code analysis just to see where we stand right now, let's take a look. I ran the yarn analyzer and I got some results for us. So our stat tree map size is at 538, and if you check Recoil, you could see that it takes 444 kilobyte and parsed 110 kilobyte. Now, Recoil is really, it's a game changer and it's great. It allows us to share the state, but here we're really not using that data. So if we don't use it, we should remove that code. This is really, it's a dead code. So if I'll go and remove that code, we can see the impact of not using Recoil. Now, one more thing you need to take a look at is that even though I'm not using Recoil here, I can delete everything actually. Let's just clean everything up. Let's see how it looks like. So I'm removing all the Recoil code. Okay. And one thing you need to notice here is that our entry point is not app.tsx. Our entry point is index.tsx. So if you look at the index.tsx, it's calling app router for single page application. And inside of our app router, I already configured it for you with Recoil. So it needs that Recoil root as the parent component in order to handle Recoil. And you can see here I also put for you some code if you want to use Redux. But in our case here, we're still going to be using Recoil because we have it baked into our app router. So if I remove the Recoil code and I just put the switch, so let's do that. I'm just going to get rid of all the Recoil code and I'm replacing it just with the switch to point the router to our app component. Okay, so now we really cleaned from Recoil, and I'm going to remove the reference from Recoil from the component. And let's build the analyzer again using the yarn analyzer. Okay, the run analyzer is complete. And now if we look for Recoil, we could see that we can't find it. And if we look at the size, previously we had a size of stats of 444 kilobyte or parsed. I'm sorry, this was with Recoil. So the entire library, the stats was 538 with Recoil and parsed 217 with Recoil. And now that I removed Recoil, the stats is 290 and the parsed is 155. This is a significant change. So as you can see here, really, even using Recoil, if all that you do is just, you have one component and you don't do a lot of sharing of, of data across your app, really Recoil is an overkill and you can just use context or other methods. But even using a library doesn't worth the price you have to pay. Another thing is that I want to point out is that if you do the yarn remove, whatever library you want to remove, this can make sure that that you don't have any reference to that library, because you're going to get compile runtime errors when you're trying to compile. So this we can make sure that it doesn't happen. The IDE, many of the modern IDEs and the ESLint is built that it's going to complain when you have that code, but sometimes it doesn't know even that you have that code because it cannot understand exactly what you're doing in your code, just like what we've seen in the app router and the index, that we have it wrapped around Recoil, that it looks harmless, but it cost us significant kilobyte and increased the size of our bundle. So removing that code, it's a way to really to get a quick win and reduce the bundle size, and it's really highly recommended every time before you go to production.